To you who now, living in love and hope, who sense a future in the surrounding air, this testament is offered. The nation had gone mad and struck out everywhere the compass knew.
January 1933, Adolf Hitler became Chancellor of Germany, sharing power with the aging President von Hindenburg. August 1934, President von Hindenburg died. Hitler became absolute ruler of Germany. Now he could do what he had spelled out in Mein Kampf for all to see. In substance it was, today Germany, tomorrow the world.
Die Partei ist Hitler! Hitler aber ist Deutschland, wie Deutschland Hitler ist! Hitler! Sieg! Sieg!
Before Hitler came into power, the German army by treaty was limited to 100,000 men.
October 1936, the Rome-Berlin Axis was formed, an unholy alliance of aggressors consolidating their forces for greater conquest.
All this rearmament was strictly illegal, according to the Versailles Treaty. A would-be peaceful world learned that a vast military power had materialized out of nowhere, a power controlled by one man who tore up treaties as we tear up ticker tape.
Drunk with power and bloodlust, the Nazis turned upon a large segment of their own German citizens.
On March the 21st, 1933, the Munich press announced the opening of the first concentration camp near Dachau.
German Jews were herded into concentration camps. The concentration camps were a brutal prelude to a ghastly program of mass extermination.
On March the 12th, 1938, without warning, the German armies marched over the Austrian border. Why was Austria important to Hitler? It put him on the southern flank of Czechoslovakia, and Czechoslovakia was the key to the control of Eastern Europe. In return for Hitler's guarantee of world peace, Chamberlain and Daladier prevailed upon Czechoslovakia to give up the Sudetenland without a fight. 6 months of declaring that he wanted no more territory anywhere, he violated the Munich Agreement, marched in, and took the whole of the Czech state. And on August 21st, 1939, the world was set on its heels by the announcement of a treaty between the Russians and the Germans. The Nazi leaders were now ready to strike. The hour had come. It was time to start conquering Eastern Europe. Precisely at dawn on September 1st, without warning, the German Wehrmacht rolled over the Polish border.
Seit 5:45 wird jetzt zurückgeschossen. Von jetzt ab wird Bombe mit Bombe vergolten.
England and France declared war for the second time in 25 years. But Germany did not strike at England or France yet. On the 9th of April, 1940, it struck at Denmark and Norway. In a disunited world, in a world where free men had not yet found their common cause, German aggression struck at them nation by nation and flung them down. Belgium, Sunday the 10th of May, 1940. Luxembourg, that stood alone, and Germany moved into the Dutch farmlands, over Holland, neutral and alone. And the way having been cleared, the Maginot Line outflanked, German power struck toward the center of France. And the armies arrived in Paris. Now there remained to finish England, tired England, who stood alone.
Berlin, hier ist der großdeutsche Rundfunk. Die Absperrketten sind längst durchbrochen worden. 100.000 rufen noch nach dem Führer, dem sie noch einmal danken wollen. Es gibt keine Worte, mit denen man das schildern könnte, was sich hier abgespielt hat.
And suddenly, turning without warning on his former ally, Hitler flung his armies against Soviet Russia in the most gigantic offensive in all history.
On the 22nd of June, 1941, Germany, with tanks, planes, troops, and self-propelled guns, attacked the Soviet Union, Stalingrad. And beyond this, Germany would never go. Seeing them, the Red Army renewed with a terrible intensity its battle cry, Smert fascistkim zachvatchikam, death to the fascist invader. But even before this, the free world had become one. After Pearl Harbor, we were united. Now no nation was alone. Now America, too, was the world's military partner. With their backs to the wall, the nations had joined hands. That was the secret of victory. For Germany's allies struck at America, and America struck back. With unity would come victory.
I have been asked to be the spokesman for this Allied Expeditionary Force in saying a word of introduction to what you're about to see. It is a story of the Nazi defeat on the Western Front. So far as possible, the editors have made it an account of the really important men in this campaign. I mean the enlisted soldiers, sailors, and airmen that fought through every obstacle to victory. Of course, to tell the whole story would take years, but the theme would be the same. Teamwork wins wars.
In England, after months of planning and preparation, it was D-Day -2. General Eisenhower was about to unleash the most massive amphibious invasion in history. During the big build-up, England had become a vast staging area for troops and the materiel of war.
England in wartime is the land of blood, sweat, and tears. A nation blackened and battered by the fury of the Nazi Luftwaffe. But it's still England, and for young Americans on their way to war, there is much to see. Wartime Britain is a place supercharged with excitement, literally the crossroads of the world.
Every day was D-Day for the Air Force. From dawn to dawn, the sound of aeroplane engines filled the air. England, now a green and pleasant, unsinkable aircraft carrier, launched immense fleets of planes to scourge the enemy in Europe, blow down his factories, tear up his railroads, explode his ammunition dumps, fight his air force out of the sky, kill his troops wherever they were to be found. No city in German Europe was safe against the onslaughts of the Dominion and American Air Force and the RAF. The bombs were dropped on Schweinfurt, Bremen, Kiel, Wilhelmshaven, on the German production centers in France, beating Nazi war industry to its knees with a merciless arithmetic of bomb tonnage.
kept bashing away at German targets, mostly steel and oil. The Ruhr, Hamburg, Battle of Berlin.
Things were getting tougher every trip. More ground defenses, more night fighters, more crews not coming back.
Us bombardiers seemed to do nothing but look down on French bridges those days. We used to ask each other, have you cut any good bridges lately? Well, finally, there was only one whole railway bridge left over the Seine between Paris and the sea.
At the end of May, virtually all of southern England is one vast staging area. The roads of England are clogged with convoys as men and supplies begin to move down to the ports and the loading areas. The Nazis also know what the Allied forces are preparing for, and they are making preparations of their own. Along the coastline, they have built an Atlantic wall, which Adolf Hitler says will make Europe an impregnable fortress. By the spring of 1944, the Nazis know that an Allied invasion is imminent, but they cannot tell when it will come or where. They think the attack most likely will strike where the distance across the Channel is narrowest, at Calais. Consequently, their strongest forces and fortifications are concentrated here. The actual target is one of the best-kept secrets of the war. The attack will come along a 50-mile stretch of coastline in the province of Normandy, dominated by the vital port of Cherbourg.
A few of the many cameramen ready to cover D-Day. Of these war cameramen, we can only show you a few, but these are some of the men who will risk their lives to shoot this gigantic military venture.
We were down on the south coast of England, where we met some of the other correspondents who were scheduled to cross the Channel with us. And here we see Larry LeSueur of CBS. Ernie Pyle here. And this is a close-up of Jack Thompson of the Chicago Tribune. And this is O'Reilly, Larry O'Reilly of the Associated Press. This is Wertenbecker. Pete Carroll here came from Boston, and he was a photographer for the Associated Press. And we're saying our farewells because we were expected to meet again in Paris. And I don't have to tell you who this man is imitating. He was a Notre Dame football player. I was told later on that he was killed in the action.
D-Day -1. Invasion forces began embarking in England. Destination, Normandy. Involved in this massive amphibious invasion were some 3 million soldiers, sailors, and airmen. 4,000 ships and boats. Operation Overlord, the code name for the invasion, was close at hand, now as D-Day and H-hour approach.
These men who have come from so many countries and speak so many tongues, gathered together in Great Britain to form this vast Allied army.
Move it! Move! Move it!
The Great Armada begins its ponderous move into the Channel waters.
They gave us the final briefing then. We knew what to do and how. They told us where and when. Ever since I became a soldier, they were getting me ready for this. I tried to imagine how much fear I would have.
17,000 men of the 82nd and 101st Airborne Division, with over 2 million pounds of combat equipment and supplies, were airlifted to carefully selected drop zones behind the invasion beaches.
Now begins a new period of waiting for the one final word. An invasion ship is a lonely ship, writes a correspondent who is there. It is a strange and suspended world, but heavy with memories of the more familiar world left behind.
Nazi bombers attempt to smash the Armada, but they are driven off.
The sky is filled with steel as plane after plane fails to break through the withering barrage. Now the enemy is throwing everything it has at the Yankees. The invasion armada, the largest ever assembled, was now in position off the coast of France. While our assault forces prepared for H-hour, Allied naval power began their concentrated shore bombardment. This was amphibious warfare on a scale that staggered the imagination. At Omaha Beach, in the first assault, 30,000 American troops stormed ashore.
They called our beach Omaha. Don't ask me why. I understand Omaha was the roughest spot. We lost some good men, took a few prisoners. It was a lousy trade. You know, you hear a lot about how long it takes to make battle-hardened soldiers out of green troops. Listen, I got to be a veteran in one day. That day.
So they paved the beaches with their blood and lurched across the dunes and reached the roads.
8 stations are established on the spot, and an astounding record starts piling up. The checkup later reveals that 80 to 90% of the wounded received medical care within 10 minutes of being hit.
The hard crust of the German West Wall was broken.
The first batch of Nazi prisoners, the Supermen who believed their West Wall impregnable, and a Frenchman to whom the stars and stripes spell liberty. He's waited a long time for this.
With every passing hour, with each passing day, reinforcements streamed ashore to enlarge the beachhead with tanks, trucks, ammunition, and supplies.
Ein Datum von weltgeschichtlicher Bedeutung. Unter dem Druck Moskaus haben Briten und Amerikaner die seit langem angekündigte und von uns erwartete Invasion begonnen.
The Nazis were blind with rage. The German mind has never understood why free people fight on against overwhelming odds. Hitler now knew he was superior in every weapon except the weapon of spirit.
Our need for ports was vital as our breath. All our plans turned upon Cherbourg. All our strategy waited upon its empty docks and piers. So the Americans, sent all across Normandy to the coast, swung toward the north, impatient for the port. The German knew our lack and swiftly drew his forces into tight defensive groups so to contest the issue.
Yanks advance on Cherbourg. From 30 to 50,000 Nazis were trapped by General Omar Bradley's 1st United States Army closing in on Cherbourg. Bitter street fighting marks the last stage of the push. Cherbourg streets are a shambles as our troops drive doggedly toward the harbor. With the defenses reduced to rubble, General von Schlieben, military commander of Cherbourg's fortresses, surrenders. With him is Admiral Hennecke, who received Hitler's Iron Cross for destroying Cherbourg's port facilities. And this is the beginning of the end. Cherbourg's grim defenders surrender. As the Allied liberation of France rolls forward, thousands of Hitler's hordes fall into our hands. During the first 30 days of the Norman campaign, the Germans suffered 75,000 casualties. Our own men show the scars of battle, too.
I've covered them with the gun down to the clearing stations. Thousands of them, and all kinds. The tough ones with the smile froze stiff on their faces by shell fire. And the plain Joes that had too much and ready to tell you that. And their poker-faced officers that never lost the poker-faced look. The SS, the parachute troops, the old soldiers off the Russian front, I've seen them all. The Hitler youth babies looking like they walked out of Lincoln High, expert killers. Kids that knew how a machine gun worked and nothing else. All through and talking too much. Ready to swear he hated Hitler all the time. Smart aleck with their talk of rights under the Geneva Convention. And asking, when do we go to America? I never gave them more than the Geneva Convention. And that was all.